Hi, I'm Barbara. Welcome back to my native garden. It's Derby Day here in Kentucky, May 1st, and it's been almost a month since I last showed you around. So let's see what's blooming today. You might remember last time this creeping phlox and violets were just starting to bloom. The phlox is starting to fade a little bit, but the violets are still doing quite well. It's a great ground cover for the rest of the year. Let's look up here and see what else is blooming. This is celandine poppy. It's a great early flower for the pollinators, and the chipmunks like to eat the seeds, and I have a lot of chipmunks. These little pods are seed pods, and toward summer they'll dry up and pop open and the seeds will go everywhere. So this is a great self-sowing flower, and it's nice in the shade. Although it's sunny right now, it does like the shade and part shade, and it likes a moist area. It will spread all over if you allow it to, and it's a beautiful flower. It doesn't get much taller than this, about 18 inches to 2 feet. And here we have columbine, wild columbine, and you see the way these flowers are. The hummingbirds love these because they can put their beak right up in the flower and get the nectar. And it's also good for bees. And then up here we have fleabane, which some people see as a weed, but it is good for the early pollinators, for the bees and the butterflies. So I let it pop up in my garden in certain places. I weed it out if it's in the way of something else. But I think it's a pretty little flower. It's in the aster family, and it also likes shade and part shade. I have a lot of shade in my garden, so these are good flowers. The columbine, the celandine poppy, and the fleabane are good for a shady spot. Over here we have common cinquefoil. This is also wild. It just popped up in my garden right along the sidewalk, so I leave it here as a little border plant. And it's good for nectar and pollen for the early pollinators. And it's also good for chipmunks. They like to eat the seeds as well. Back here we have false blue indigo, or some call it wild blue indigo. And that actually likes sun. I've had that for a few years. It might be a lot bigger if it were in a more sunny spot. It does get some sun during the day. But it is a host plant for butterflies. And behind that you'll see my bald cypress. I got that 8 years ago as a seedling from Arbor Day. And now it's almost 15 feet tall. It will eventually grow to be 50 to 75 feet tall. But it's great for birds, like to nest there, and they also get seeds there. I find a lot of my warblers and migrating birds always stop off in that tree, and that's where we can get a good look at them. This is Stonecrop. It makes a great ground cover. It's blooming right now. Later these blooms will fade, but you'll still have a nice ground cover, and it likes shade or part shade. And you'll notice over here I've got some butterfly milkweed coming up. That will be blooming probably in about another month, getting ready for the monarchs. This is golden Alexander. It's a host plant for the swallowtail butterflies. Last year I had swallowtail butterflies on some parsley that I was growing, which is also a host plant. They ate up all the parsley, so I moved them over to this golden Alexander, and they finished this one off too. I keep it in my herb garden next to the parsley and my other herbs. This is Arrowwood Viburnum. Last time we looked around, it was just starting to bloom. Now the blooms are out. They're not quite full yet, but this is another great host plant and a good place for the birds to build their nests. And there will be berries on here in the fall, and the birds will eat the berries. This is another very shady garden, and there's some flowers in here that really like the shade. This is wild geranium. It's great for the native bees. And I have a great ground cover. This is wild ginger. I have it in spots around. It still hasn't spread all over the garden. But you can see that there are tiny little flowers. I'm going to show you one right here that actually are under the leaves. You don't see them unless you pick up the leaves. They lie on the ground so that the flies and insects can actually walk right into those flowers. So that's wild ginger. I also have hairy alum root that hasn't bloomed yet, but it also likes the shade. I hope you enjoyed seeing what's blooming in my Barron County native garden in early May. I'll check back in a few weeks when more is in bloom.